Hi, I'm Dan Iacono. I'm with IDC Storage Systems Group. I'm here with the CTO of PernixData, Satayam, at the VMUG in Philadelphia. Satayam, thanks for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me, Dan.
So Satayam, we're kind of curious, where do you see Flash adoption in the enterprise?
We are seeing it all over the stack, in storage systems, on the server side, closer to the applications.
So what do you see with some of the challenges with server-side Flash?
Well, so far, it seems there's not a great practical way to leverage server-side Flash, although the promise is very obvious to everyone, and people are indeed trying to get it to work with applications in a way that is not very disruptive to their operational practices, and that's where I see the challenges is typically server-side Flash means that the data now ought to move from storage systems to this new layer, and people got to think about how they do data services in this new layer all over again. How do you do replication? How do you do snapshotting and so on? And the other challenge I see is it seems to be that most of the ways to use server-side Flash is very use case specific. It's very niche. There's ways to leverage server-side Flash maybe for VDI workloads and so on. But it's a much smaller component of the market where it can actually be.
Well, you mentioned VDI, and I think of, as well as VDI, I think of virtual servers and hypervisors. What are some of the challenges with Flash and, let's say, hypervisors like VMware?
Oh, that's a great question. Hypervisors take the challenges to the next level because most hypervisors today, including VMware's, they are all clustered systems, and so now we have this ironic situation where one is trying to leverage an eminently local resource, a hardware resource, which is server-side Flash, in an eminently clustered system, and people have to now leverage it in a way that doesn't break operations that they rely on, things like vMotion, for example, or DRS, or HA, or FT, or the way they back up virtual machines. That's very hard to do without making this local resource somehow clustered, and that's where we think the next big disruption is to make a clustered data tier using server-side Flash devices.
Well, I know the hyperscale definitely had this issue, and in hypervisors of saying all the Flash is locked into a server-side Flash. Can you tell me a little bit more about some of the HA capabilities that people are working on with server-side Flash?
Sure. So I guess there's two parts to the problem. There's a read problem and the write problem when you're trying to leverage server-side Flash to give great IOPS to your application. And the read problem's reasonably straightforward, so I'm just going to gloss over that as you're using server-side Flash devices as a read cache, and everything works great because the SAN is still, or your backend storage system is still the source of truth. But when it comes to trying to leverage server-side Flash to solve the write problem, that's where the HA problem comes in, is you might use this Flash device as an intermediate cache where you're hosting all your writes, but they haven't made it to the primary storage system. And then before they can make it to the primary storage system, you might have some kind of outage on the server side, network, server, Flash, whatever it is. And so you need some kind of HA story to make sure that if there is such an outage on one node, there are maybe other nodes in the system that can get the data that was in the Flash layer out to the storage system, which is the place where data goes to rest. And so anyway, in terms of technology, the great challenge is to actually build this clustered system which also contains a replication engine, so that as virtual machines or applications write to server-side Flash devices, copies are also sent out to other nodes in the cluster. And then they all monitor each other, and if a node dies, then one of them takes over the responsibility of destaging the data.
So you're no stranger to clustered systems. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience with clustered systems?
Sure, I earned my stripes doing VMFS, which is a clustered file system. And the great thing about VMFS is it's one of the most popular clustered file systems in the data center today, but it is also the most easiest to use clustered system out there. Right now, though, there's more recent evidence of what we've done in terms of clustering is at PernixData. We built a clustered Flash virtualization platform that takes care of the read and the write problem. And while we were trying to attack the write problem, is where we did a very interesting set of clustering technologies. As we are sitting in the hypervisor doing replication on behalf of virtual machines on a per VM basis, of course, for virtual machines that are in write-back, so that if physical machines go down or if flash devices go away, one of the other peers can take over the responsibility of destaging data.
That's really interesting, having clustered flash at the server level. Can you comment about where you see flash going in the next couple of years?
Sure. Looks like we are just at the cusp of the revolution. I mean, people are trying to use flash by installing drivers inside the virtual machines, by probably using them inside virtual appliances, making hybrid storage systems. PernixData makes a hypervisor-based clustered flash acceleration layer, and so I think we are all discovering it. But it seems to me that we are converging. There was a time when people were using, for example, server-side flash by installing drivers inside virtual machines. Well, that doesn't scale. Or using server-side flash by using virtual appliances. But now we are converging, as maybe we are arriving at the right architecture, and we are trying to do it in a clustered way, so that it is not a niche use case, but a very generic part of infrastructure that you just deploy. In terms of the future, where it goes, looks like on the server-side part, it looks like vendors will throw in more resource management capabilities, potentially on a per VM basis, such that you can do really interesting policy-based management for your application, storage policy-based management. Now, I think that's interesting because everyone talks about policy-based management, but now it becomes interesting because you finally have a resource that can adhere to the policies that you set. So far you can set a policy, but you can just hope that the policy is adhered to. So that's probably what's going to be interesting on the server side. On the storage side, we think there's going to be very interesting advances in the use of flash to do some very interesting metadata offload, such that storage systems can do much spiffier file systems, greater better replication engines, better snapshotting engines, and so on.
Well, it sounds like the future is definitely bright for flash.
Definitely, I would agree.
Well, thanks for having us. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for spending the time, Dan.
I appreciate it. This is Dan Iacono with IDC Storage Subsystems Group, and look for us to keep on analyzing the future.